I would like to welcome Dr. Arndt, the Chief Executive Officer, and the other officers of the Future Fund Management Agency. Would you care to make an opening statement?
I would.
Excellent. Please go ahead.
Since we last appeared before the committee, we released our portfolio update for the year ended 31 December 2025. This reported a 10-year return of 8.5% per annum above the mandated target of 7% per annum. The 12-month return of 12.4% was well above the target return of 7.7%. By any measure, this is an exceptionally strong performance and in dollar terms represents an increase of around $30 billion for the year, taking the total value of the Future Fund to $267 billion, an increase of more than $206 billion since its inception in 2006. This strong result was achieved during a year of upheaval in global markets and geopolitics and against a backdrop of far-reaching longer-term change in the investment landscape. This change in the world and the implications of the new investment order are what we have been preparing for several years now. Many of the risks we began to note as far back as 2021 are playing out. We have increased the resilience of the portfolio to a range of scenarios by diversifying our exposure as set out in our public papers. Since we called out these changes and put in place our new organisational strategy, we've added well over $100 billion to the Future Fund in investment returns alone. While it is not realistic to expect continual outperformance year on year, we're confident we've designed and managed our portfolio to deliver resilience and ensure we can meet the targeted returns over the long run. The value of the 6 other funds managed by the Future Fund Board of Guardians increased to $68 billion. We also provided almost $4 billion of withdrawals and distributions towards these funds' intended programs. The total funds managed by the Future Fund Board of Guardians are now over $335 billion. This year, the fund celebrates its 20th anniversary since its establishment by the Howard Costello government and supported by successive governments since. In 2024, the current government extended the investment mandate to require the board to have regard to national priorities. The board has now committed over $1 billion to national priority investments since the change of the mandate, and I'm pleased to announce that the board has just completed its first investment in Australian build-to-rent housing via a relationship with Macquarie and its investment in Local. 20 years is an important milestone as we build an organisation which will continue to serve Australia well in the years ahead. I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. Senator Pocock.
Chair, and thanks for being here once again. I wanted to start with some questions around your strategies around fossil fuels. You may remember we talked about them. I asked some questions last time. When you were here, I asked whether the Future Fund had tailored engagement strategies in place for major Australian fossil fuel producers, including Whitehaven Coal, if we could just start with them. You told me that the fund did, in fact, have such strategies in place, but that you were yet to develop measurable metrics to hold these companies accountable to your stewardship goals. That's my memory of that. Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Great. Has the fund since then developed these metrics or engagement objectives for Whitehaven? And if so, what are they?
So we've certainly made progress in developing the metrics and the engagement program. I can't speak to individual companies, but in terms of the metrics, they are, so the climate change related metrics are tracking scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, testing whether the company has a business strategy that's aligned with the Paris goals, and measuring and tracking the physical risk exposure.
So what was the last?
The physical risk exposure.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
So if it's got physical location in places that might be prone to flooding or cyclone and the like.
Okay. Can you go to the first one, tracking scope 1, 2 and 3, I think you said. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what that looks like? How exactly is a company reporting to you? What are you asking them to give you on that front?
So what we're doing is building out metrics for what we think the most exposed companies are right now. There's 28 companies, I'm told, that we're going to track, and we're using experts to help us determine the metrics for each individual company. So we're still putting those arrangements in place. So this program isn't yet fully operational, but it's certainly progressing.
When do you expect it to be fully operational?
I'd have to take that on notice.
Okay. So you've got 28 companies you're expecting to be tracking in relation to 3 lines of assessment, 3 sets of metrics.
Well, 3 carbon change or carbon pricing, climate change metrics. There are other metrics, I believe, as well.
That are not related to climate or... Yeah. Okay. And can I ask how a company like Whitehaven responded to the conversations and the establishment of those metrics? What's been the response?
I'd have to take on notice whether we've actually had a further meeting with them since we've gone down this route. Usually the companies meet with us prior to, in the voting season, prior to the AGM, so I'm not aware of whether we've had a further meeting with them.
Okay. I'm sure you're aware that Whitehaven is the largest coal expansion company with plans of massive expansion in coal, which has got significant consequences for our Paris Agreement. Does that mean the fund, how will you view for expansion of thermal coal in a plan like that? How will that line up with what you're tracking?
Well, as I said, Senator, we're going to take expert advice on these metrics. What we'll be looking for is a company, a management team and a board that are aware of the Paris goals and changes that we expect in the economy and have a plan, a plausible plan for the company to adapt to that world in line with shareholder outcomes. I can't speak to an individual company. I'm not familiar yet. We're still standing up the program.
Who is providing the expert advice in relation to those 28 companies?
I'd have to take that on notice.
Okay, it's external to the Future Fund staffing group. Okay, I'd like to be interested to hear that. And you're talking about a plausible plan. Does that mean you expect a company like Whitehaven, Santos, Woodside to come to you with a plan against those 3 kinds of metrics, or how will you apply it?
Well, when you say come to us, I think we mean come to all shareholders. So most companies now are publishing transition plans, not all, and we're encouraging all of them to do that. And this is intended to be an assessment of the transition plan relative to the Paris goals.
And if you find a company deficient on, say, one of those 3 areas, what do you intend to do?
Well, it's hard to be hypothetical, but would certainly, if we were meeting the company, would certainly be raising it with them and seeing what their response was. Okay.
Whitehaven's most recent annual general meeting was last October 2025. I understand that you voted for their remuneration report. Is that correct? Have I understood that correctly?
I don't know if we've published that yet.
For last year, I need to check.
October. I think we'll have to take that on notice.
Okay. I think you voted against Woodside's remuneration plan on the 8th of May, and I think that's on your website, in 2025. Why did you vote against their remuneration plan in Woodside?
I'm not involved with the individual company decisions, so I can speak to the generalities of why we would vote against something, but I would have to take on notice the specifics, Senator. In terms of the general approach to voting, we would take advice on all shareholder votes from our fund manager, from the 2 proxy advisors we use that we've discussed previously, and then our team would assess those recommendations against our board's proxy voting principles. And so on remuneration, it's usually to do with either the transparency of the metrics, the difficulty of achieving the metrics or otherwise of the management team. They're typically the things. Sometimes it's on total quantum of remuneration as well.
Sorry, it's on what?
Sometimes it's on total quantum as well.
Long term, did you say?
Quantum, like the total amount.
Quantum, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. So you voted against Woodside's remuneration plan on the 8th of May 2025, and you voted for the Santos remuneration report on the 10th of April 2025. Given that both Santos and Woodside incentivise their executives to pursue oil and gas and growth in oil and gas. How does that commonality of their approach factor into your different decisions around remuneration voting?
Well, it would depend on the specifics of the issues being voted upon and also the advice of the various parties that I explained. So I can't talk to the specifics of the two votes.
So when I look to your investment mandate, and which includes supporting the energy transition as part of the net zero transformation of the Australian economy, how do you intend to report against that in relation to the kinds of issues that I'm asking about?
So the way the mandate is drafted, it's in making its investment decisions, the board should have regard to supporting the energy transition. We think about that in terms of opportunities and also in terms of risks. So in terms of opportunities, as we've previously discussed, we're making investments in a whole variety of companies that are building renewable generation, transmission, building new technologies. In terms of risks, we've also previously talked about how we think about climate risk, regulatory risk around carbon intensity and the like. So we would consider all those things.
So given the quantum of the investment in these very large resource fossil fuel companies, I think I've got the figures here, Whitehaven 37 million, talking middle of last year, these figures. Woodside, a very sizable 531 million, and Santos 284 million. Do you expect to see a shift in your investment out of these very large investments into renewable resources as a consequence of your mandate?
We'd expect that the economy will transition in line, in this case, they're Australian companies, in line with the Australian government's commitment to the Paris agreement and transition, and also the global transition of the economies. And so our approach as a shareholder would be to hold them accountable for being transparent and working on a transition plan. In terms of the specific selection of individual companies, how much we own of each of them, that's something that our investment managers do on our behalf.
So you don't expect that mandate to affect the buckets in which you place Australians' resources, their funds. You expect your influence to be exercised through your conversation as a shareholder to those companies individually, but you don't expect the profile of your investment to shift in relation to that mandate. I find that strange.
Oh, I didn't say that, Senator.
I'm sorry if I've misunderstood.
So the board, I think we've also previously discussed that the board's now also adopted a responsible investment belief, and that the board's in the process of reviewing all of its responsible investment strategies, and we haven't fully implemented all of that. It's quite a large piece of work, but I would expect that our team would be having discussions with the fund managers about their processes to look at these type of risks and opportunities.
Okay, thank you. I have that in front of me and I have had a look at it. I will look forward to hearing perhaps how that shifts the profile of investment into the future. I wanted to turn to ANZ, and which we also, as I recollect, talked about last time. You will be no doubt familiar with the appalling behaviour of ANZ, which led to the largest corporate fine in Australian history for its misbehaviour around the issue of bonds, which cost the public sector millions of dollars, for its false and misleading statements about saving interest rates and its failure to pay to its thousands of customers, and its appalling behaviour in relation to hardship notices. How did you vote in relation, I think in 2024 you voted for the ANZ remuneration report, have I understood that correctly?
Yes.
How did you vote in December of last year?
So we haven't released that, but I did check it, and we did vote in favour. The team did meet with the ANZ board and discuss at length the issues that you raise, and ultimately got satisfied that the board was taking it seriously and taking appropriate steps.
So do you support the legal action, the agreement to remove the long-term incentives from the previous CEO?
Well, I'm not familiar with the specifics. I just know that the team felt that they were comfortable overall with the response of the board, taking the issues seriously and acting on them.
So the CEO is in the court contesting the removal of his long-term incentives. I think it was 18 million, I can't remember exactly. What's your view about appropriate action in relation to the leadership team at ANZ? You have a very sizable investment in ANZ, as I recollect.
So we expect the board to act on behalf of the shareholders in those sort of matters, and they obviously know a lot more about the specifics than any shareholder would. And our approach is to discuss with the board, hear their views and why they took the actions they took, and form a view on the board.
What conversation have you had with the board about, or with ANZ leadership about their behaviour?
So we've met the ANZ board several times and discussed the whole series of events and the board's response. I haven't been involved in all of those meetings, but I've been in some of them. So we know that they're taking it seriously, we know that they're acting on it, and they've obviously replaced the CEO as well.
I'll just correct myself. I said 18 million withdrawn the long-term incentives. It was 13.5 million, which, of course, Shane Elliott is currently contesting.
Will we rotate the call?
I have only one more question.
Oh, go right ahead.
And thanks for your answers. How you mentioned in response to your investment mandate, Part B to the national priorities, is increasing the supply of residential housing in Australia. Can you just lay out a bit further exactly what you are doing in that space? You mentioned build to rent with Macquarie. Can you explain the dimensions of that and anything else you're doing in this massive housing crisis we're enduring?
So from an investment perspective, we typically would think about most of the opportunities falling into what we would call our property allocation, which invests broadly in property, residential being one subsector. Since the mandate was changed, we've asked the team to do some research and consider the map, if you like, of residential accommodation in Australia, what the different access points are, which ones look commercially attractive, which ones have impediments or less attractive returns. We have already made investments in purpose-built student accommodation, including funding a pipeline of new beds, and in land lease, which is a form of aged or retirement living. Also with a pipeline of new accommodation units. And then, as I just said earlier, we've just completed an investment with Macquarie in their Australian property fund, which through them is investing with local in Australian build to rent.
So can you tell us what the nature of that investment is, where it is, the size of it?
Well, it's through the fund that we're in, so we don't have direct visibility to that. That's something Macquarie is doing.
Okay, so just tell me the mechanics of how that works.
So we invest in the fund. That's managed by Macquarie. Certainly one of the reasons we looked at this fund and what it invested in was because of the new mandate. We got satisfied that that was an appropriate investment for the fund to make on a commercial basis, as well as ticking the national priority areas. The fund manager, being Macquarie, has invested in a property developer called Local, which is developing build-to-rent accommodation.
And do you know where that's focused geographically?
I'd have to take that on notice.
Okay, thank you. I'd be curious to hear that. Could you tell us a little about your ready-made student accommodation involvement?
Well, it was an investment we made alongside a fund manager, Greystar, which does that type of investment Also I think it's, I'd have to take on notice, I think it's a direct investment in the company, but it may be through a fund. And similarly, we have a fund manager that's operating the business on our behalf.
So I'd be interested on notice to learn more about exactly how that looks. Similarly, the land investment in relation to aged care, is that one of those? Is that a direct investment in a particular facility, or?
It's in a business that owns a number of facilities and is expanding them, also with the fund manager.
And is that the model where the land is leased, owned by the investment fund or organisation, and the resident puts a house on it? Is that and pays a lease?
I believe so, yes.
A model like that. Once again, I'd look forward to some information about your
Sure.
involvement and its outcome, who it's advantaging or how it's structured. Thank you. I'm done. Thanks for your answers.
Senator Sharma.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. I believe, just looking through the future fund portfolio update, that you, Dr. Arndt, credit the fund's strong performance last year to exposure to the rapid adoption of artificial intelligence as one of your thematic areas of investment. Can you just explain to me, this isn't a trick question, I'm just interested, what the sort of primary mechanisms of exposure of the fund are to that theme?
It's quite broad. So the biggest exposure would be through the listed markets, and in particular through the US market, the so-called Mag 7.
Yep.
For the part of the year they did very well, and then for part of the year they sold off. We also have investments in the infrastructure sector into data centres. In fact, we're one of the larger investors in CDC. And we're funding expansion there. Also on the energy generation side, there's significant demand for energy generation globally because of the data centre rollout. So they're seeing significant demand here in Australia. We invest in Tilt Renewables, but we have similar investments around the world. And then through the private equity and venture capital, particularly the venture capital program, there's quite a lot of exposure to applications that use AI directly, and some smaller exposure to foundation models.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned the exposure through US public equity. So as I understand it, the fund's allocation to developed market equities has gone up significantly since 2024. I think about 5 percentage points. You've got you're longer on those areas. Okay. And obviously there's been a lot of media speculation about an AI boom, an AI bubble, and some sell-offs in the public markets, at least, with a concern that these companies might be overvalued. What's the house view, if you like, towards that theme now, and is the fund adjusting its weightings or its strategy with that in mind? I mean, what's your view on the sort of overall valuations that we're seeing now, especially obviously in the public markets?
I think if you ask 10 investors, you'll get 10 views. I don't know that there's a house view, but we think, as I was explaining before, there's a wide variety of ways we access the thematic. So if some of the access points are overpriced, it doesn't necessarily mean they all are.
Yes.
In terms of the, if you like, the listed mega caps and the AI stocks, definitely they're expensive. In the US, in general, their earnings growth has kept pace with their price growth. So they've had remarkable earnings growth. So we haven't formed a view that we want to reduce the exposure to those companies.
Okay.
In terms of the data centre space and the application space, we think it continues to look very attractive.
Okay. And the data centre and infrastructure exposures, are they predominantly domestic?
We have both domestic and international.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then just to pick up on your opening statement, you talked about the broadening the investment mandate and the regard to national priorities. So, and I think you mentioned you committed now over $1 billion to national priority investments. Is there a view or a benchmark that you're looking in terms of the fund's allocation towards these national priorities?
Not specifically.
Okay.
We don't have a different hurdle rate for those type of investments. They have to stack up just as much as any other investment that we make.
Okay.
It's more that when we assess multiple investments, if one of them ticked the national priorities box, we would prioritise that over something else.
So it's everything else being equal if it fits within the
Exactly.
national priority. Okay, and so you've got, is the $1 billion figure you mentioned, is that one investment in the built-to-rent sector?
That's a very, very small part of it. So we've already announced, since the mandate was changed, we've increased our exposure to CDC.
Yep.
We've increased our exposure to Tilt Renewables.
Okay, yep.
We've invested in Transgrid, which is building out the transmission lines. And then the residential housing investments that I was referring to earlier. And also we have an investment that's been reported on in Gilmore Space.
I see, okay, all right. And then just on the, and I don't quite understand this, so maybe you can explain it to me. Do you invest on behalf of the Housing Australia Future Fund, or you manage their portfolio?
We invest the portfolio.
Okay.
And generate returns and make a distribution each year under the legislation, and then Housing Australia allocates that money.
I see, okay. So I mean, is it about 476 million of HAF money that you manage? Is that right?
No, it's about. It was
I had this on an old.
Well, it was originally 10 billion, but I think it's a little bit more than that now. I'll be able to tell you. Sorry.
11.4 billion at the 31st of December.
11.4 billion. And where is that invested?
It's very similar to the Future Fund. It's got a very similar portfolio. So
it doesn't have a housing-only mandate?
no.
So it's just designed to generate a return that the Housing Australia Future Fund then uses for...
Yeah, so the investment mandate's CPI plus 2 to 3, which is
Yep.
a slightly lower risk mandate than the Future Fund, and we build a portfolio very diversified globally across all asset classes to generate that.
Okay.
But there's no specific requirement to invest it in housing.
Okay. Is some of it invested in housing? 'Cause I believe Greg Combate confirmed that the fund invests in domestic student accommodation and retirement living.
As I was saying before, we invest it in parallel with the Future Fund. So most of the time
You're
they have the same investments.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Chair. That was all I had.
Okay. We're going to go back to Senator Pocock, who has further questions.
Thank you, Chair. And I have some questions in relation to Palantir, if I can start with that. What due diligence, I understand the fund has some 100 million, perhaps more, in Palantir. What due diligence did you conduct on Palantir's human rights record before investing over 100 million? And were there concerns that you discovered or have hold yourself about mass surveillance without consent, which I understand Palantir has been accused of? Were they considered disqualifying factors in your placement of that investment?
Will Heatherton, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Future Fund Management Agency. Thank you. So the investment that the board has in Palantir, which I think is reported about 103 million, you say, is held through two index-focused investment managers. So the board sets the overall strategy in terms of the risk exposures that we seek, but the actual selection of stocks and the application of strategies, and in this case they're effectively passive index tracking strategies, is a matter for the managers. So we're not involved in selecting individual stocks.
So you haven't pursued with them a request to investigate issues around Palantir's reputation, given a growing body of media stories about their technology being used to track and deport immigrants?
So our focus in this space is really thinking first of all around sanctions and the application of sanctions, then the application of the board's exclusions policy, which we've talked about, and focuses on the economic activities that are subject to treaties or conventions that the Australian government has ratified. So we don't get to the level of detail of looking at individual stocks in the portfolio in that sense. Of course, Palantir is a US company, and so our focus in engagement and stewardship is on our Australian holdings, where we are able to engage more effectively and we understand the market better. So that's our focus. We do expect, and of course we exercise our voting rights in offshore companies as well.
We live in a very changing world, and many Australians are horrified by what they see in America and the work of the horrific experience being imposed on immigrants in the US. So is this on your radar? Will you publicly release your full rationale for this investment and give an undertaking to review it in view of the changing nature of Palantir's activities and their dire consequences for many very vulnerable people?
I think, Senator, I've explained the rationale for the holding and how we construct a portfolio, and a very diversified portfolio. I would observe that Palantir is a very widely held stock by investors globally. But certainly in our conversations with our managers, these are the sorts of issues that we typically raise.
Many stocks are widely held, which we would not want Australian investment in, and as your exclusions clearly illustrate. Do you have plans to get out of this investment in Palantir, given the controversy, the growing controversy that surrounds the nature of their work and their activities?
Senator, we'll continue to engage with our managers to make sure that they understand the issues, and we consider and they consider those in their investment decisions. But the individual stock selection is really a matter for those fund managers.
Will the Future Fund commit to divesting from Palantir and establishing clear ethical investment standards that exclude companies profiting from surveillance, a massively growing problem around the globe, profiting from surveillance, from weapons and from human suffering arising from the technologies that Palantir have developed and are purveying around the globe?
Senator, the board has a responsible investment policy, and we've talked about this before, and we've talked about the update of the belief. The application of that and how we approach that and the evolution of that is something that we continue to consider and will continue to do so. But I can't here and now commit to what you're asking.
Minister, do you have a view about Palantir's reputation, the nature of its products and the way they're being used to punitively pursue and to racially profile with terrible outcomes for immigrant workers in places like the US now?
Well, I think you've heard the evidence from the Future Fund. I would say, and I've answered this way before in relation to questions like this, the Future Fund Board invests independently of government. We legally cannot direct the Future Fund to invest in particular areas or otherwise. It's part of the legislative framework that surrounds the Future Fund Board. What we can do is shape the investment mandate, which we have done and amended that, but we have particular responsibilities.
But you have set already specific exclusions, Minister, in relation to particular armaments, to military investments, very specific, similarly in relation to tobacco. Why would you not be... we're in such a changing universe now around the military, the expansion of military investments which are being used with such appalling effect around our planet. Why wouldn't you be... You already do it. Why wouldn't you be regularly revisiting the ethical basis of these investments?
Well, we do consider these matters in relation to the investment mandate and other guidance we provide, but in the Future Fund and the Future Fund Board make decisions independently of ministers, as it should be, and as they did in this case.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thanks for your answers, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. And we will release you now. And I would ask the Digital Transformation Agency to come to the table.
See you soon.
Okay. Do you have anything?
Sorry?
Do you have anything for these guys?
No, good. I'm done.
Neither do we.
I'll give him something.
Okay.
I didn't ask.
My God. I wouldn't get too comfortable. Apparently, there's nobody here that has any questions for you. My sincere apologies. That's. But if I were you, I'd run. Seriously.
I'm sorry you had to wait.
So sorry.
Yeah.
I hate it when this happens. Okay. ASC. Let's suspend for a moment while we find a witness that someone's got a question for. Executive Officer, and Mr. Ashley Menadue. Would you care to make an opening statement?
No, we don't need to make an opening statement today.
Okay, we will go directly to questions, and we'll go to Senator Sharma.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks and good evening. Thanks for appearing. I last asked when we were here in December. It was just after the new Defence Delivery and Agency changes had been announced, and I believe at the time it was only a day or two before estimates, and I believe you'd seen the media release and one or two other things. Can you tell me, though, what your involvement has been in the development of that concept since, the level of consultation, frequency of meetings, your expected involvement?
Sure. So, thank you, Senator. Since last Senate estimates, we've had a briefing on the concept of the reorganisation, and there has been further engagement with discussions with members of my team where they have consulted with us.
Was there just one briefing, and who provided that?
Oh, I can't remember that. I can find out for you.
Okay. Who? Was it just one briefing, though? There
was one briefing, and then there was a further consultation.
Okay. And is your understanding any further developed of how the Defence Delivery Agency will change how you deal as ASC with what's now CASG and the Naval Shipbuilding and Sustainment Group? What's your understanding of how that will operate now?
The way we deal with NSSG is we are contracted by from the NSSG.
Yep.
So I don't see much change coming from that contractual route.
But the contracting party will become the Defence Delivery Agency, I presume?
Exactly. And we're contracted to scope, so I expect that to continue.
Okay. But the services you're contracted to provide under the contract, there's no indication that they're changing in scope or size or scale?
That's correct.
Okay. Have you been given a timeframe on the implementation or likely implementation or the key milestones for the implementation of the DDA?
No, we haven't.
Okay. Which part of Defence has been leading the briefing and the consultations to date with you?
I think that's been through the Defence Secretary. It's coming from that height, not through NSSG.
And not through CASGEN, through the Office of the Defence Secretary?
We don't work with CASGEN.
You don't have any relationship with CASGEN,
No.
so it's all been through the Office of the Defence Secretary. Okay. And do you have, I think you've answered this, but I'll ask it for the sake of completeness. Do you have any understanding of how your current arrangements with NSSG will differ if they're with DDA, or is your expectation that they will remain?
My expectation is that they will remain.
Okay. So what's obviously this is a reform. It's being undertaken, that from your perspective at least, as I understand it, it's unlikely to change how you engage with Defence, the services you provide. What's the rationale or the benefit, at least as it's been explained to you as ASC, from this change?
So firstly, I'd like to say that we have very long-standing contracts which run over many years. Mm-hmm. So the in-service support contract, and we're in performance period 4 of that. Performance period 5 of that contract, which has got another 2 and a bit years to run before we move into performance period 6. We're looking after the submarines through their life. And so we work very closely with NSSG and the Australian Submarine Enterprise. That's why I don't see much change for us, because of it's such a long-term contract. It's not the same as acquisition contracts.
Okay, thank you. I had no further questions for ASC.
Sir Shoebridge.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks for your attendance tonight. It's my understanding the first-of-class life-of-type extension will begin this year on HMAS Farncombe in full-cycle docking. Is that right?
First life-of-type extension will start this year, yes.
On HMAS Farncombe? I'm not... I don't like to talk about the names of the boats. If you want to talk about the names of the boats, please talk to Defence. Everyone will see it there, and we will see all the crew from HMAS Farncombe wandering about on shore and not being on a submarine. But anyhow, that's full cycle docking is going to begin this year. Is it on track?
The boat will arrive as planned to the IMS.
Is the predicted time for this first float, is it still that the boat will be in Osborne for 2 years? Is that still the predicted time frame?
The nominal time for a full cycle docking is 2 years. However, the actual schedule and actual scope will be decided through the normal process we're going through. We'll recognise the current position with the number of boats that are available to the Navy, the material condition of that boat before she comes in, which we will assess within a couple of months of her arriving. We have received the advanced planning letter from the Commonwealth with their aspirations of the work that they would like to see done. We have responded with what the impacts would be on the schedule and the scope, and now we're in the process with the Commonwealth of that discussion around what scope will actually be executed and therefore the schedule.
So given you now know significantly more, you've had the advanced planning letter from Defence, you've looked at the impacts on schedule. I want to ask you, is it still predicted to be 2 years? Can you shed any additional light?
That very much depends on the decisions made by the Commonwealth around the scope which we actually conduct.
All right. But it would be fair to say, knowing the way of these things, that the risk is upside, not downside, more than 2 years, not less than 2 years.
That, again, is a question that you should take to defence.
Well, you're going to be doing the work, so you must have some knowledge. I doubt you're talking about, actually, it was much better than we thought, far less work that we need to worry about, should be out of here in 6 months. That's never the discussion, and particularly given the age of this fleet, almost certainly not the discussion.
So, as I said, because of the Commonwealth and the Navy need to trade off availability against the capability additions to the submarine, and we need to take into account the availability condition assessment, which will be done a couple of months before the submarine arrives. The actual scope of work to be done is still in the process of being defined, and therefore that will be adjusted to optimise the availability for the fleet.
All right. Is the cost still estimated to be in the range of $4 to $5 billion, as you understand it?
4 to 5
billion, $1,000 million.
So I think you're talking about the project cost estimate for the
Correct.
overall LOAT program.
Yes, I'm not talking about, you're correct, I'm not talking only about for the first boat, I'm talking about for the project.
For the 6.
You're right to
so
correct
that
me.
is the project cost estimate for the
All right.
6 boats.
Will this be under the contract notice? I have a number here, it may not mean much to you, CN 3375971, but that's the ASC contract to develop the design and procurement for first-of-class equipment for the Life of Type Extension program. Is that contract going to be extended to cover the whole of the program? Is that your understanding?
So the way the contract works is that we have been contracted for the design of the submarine, of the LOAT program, which is now completed for the first-of-class LOAT boat, and for the procurement of the equipment for the first-of-class LOAT boat. And then there will be further tasking statements associated with that contract, which add to it as we move through to do the implementation. Yes.
Well, on my reading, and we went through the AusTender programs, there have been nearly 170 amendments to that contract already. That doesn't come as a surprise to you, I think, Mr. Walsh, is that right?
I thought we were up to tasking statement 75.
Yeah, well, you say 75. Our reading is 170 amendments, and I've got the list here. And I've got to tell you, I think it's 170. Just going through it is far closer than 75. The contract value is now at $9.45 billion, up from $2 billion. That contract is said to extend to the 30th of June 48. And at the current rate, that would end up being a more than $20 billion project.
So,
how is it that all of this novel work can be done under this original contract first signed in 2012?
So our contract commitment from Defence at the moment, I think, is $785 million.
Sorry, Mr. Walsh, I didn't hear that.
The contract commitment for what we have been tasked with is $785 million under the LOAT contract.
Well, is that part of this, one of the variations that we read to take us up to $9.4 billion under this contract?
We're not contracted to that amount of money. There was a project cost estimate of the 4.5 to whatever it was number that you talked about at the beginning, which is a budgetary estimate, but we are not contracted to that. We are contracted for slices of scope as it becomes defined.
Yeah.
And then, so for instance, if we're we get to a point where we have matured the design of a certain component. At that point, then, we receive a tasking statement for the procurement of that component.
All right. Well, AusTender has the contract value, the signed contract value, with all of the amendments, including all the amendments, now at $9.45 billion. Does that include the $785 million for the first lot?
Yeah, so consulting with my colleague here, the overall value of the life of type extension will include scope which is not ASC's, and that's probably a matter for defence.
All right. But what I'm asking you is, AusTender has the current contract with ASC at $9.45 billion. Does that include the $785 million for load? And it's a cumulative contract from the 1st of July 2012. Well, it says it runs to the 30th of June 2048. But
From 2012.
2012.
I think you need to ask that question of defence.
Well, you're a party to this contract. Surely you know how much the contract is worth.
So I know the contract value of the LOTE part of the contract, which is 785 million.
All right. Well, perhaps you can on notice advise which of the 170 variations incorporate that $785 million project cost for the LOTE, unless you have it to hand.
No, we don't.
All right. What are ASC's current staffing targets?
So our current staffing is just over 3,000 people.
And what are the I've asked you what the targets are. So we can do it the other way around. I was then going to ask you what the levels. You've now told us what the levels are, so what are the targets?
So targets are that we need to continue to increase our staffing by around about 500 people per year for the foreseeable future to meet the requirements of the AUKUS programme.
All right. So you say your staffing is 3,000?
Yep.
What should you have according to your targets right now?
Oh, around 3,000.
All right. And do you see extra 500 by the end of this financial year?
Yes, I do.
Are you on track to get another 500 staff by the end of this financial year to increase your workforce by almost 20%?
We took on nearly 197 during January.
All right. So last year I asked if you'd seen the report from US Navy Assistant Deputy Secretary Valdez, and you said that yes, you had requested it, but you hadn't received it. Have you received it yet?
No, we have not.
Have you requested it again?
No, we have not.
Has Navy provided any explanation for why they haven't given it to you?
No, they have not.
Do you think it would assist you in doing the LOTE work?
I believe that if there were issues in there which would assist us, Navy and NSSG would have instructed us on those issues.
Have they told you that?
No.
So on what basis do you form that belief?
Because we have completed the design reviews. We have had 5 technical assessment panels which have looked at the progress of the LOTE programme, and we have successfully completed all of those and closed out the actions, and there is general people are content and happy with the state of the design and what we have produced.
Do you have independent engineering assurance that the LOTE is achievable?
And that was what the technical assessment panel did for us.
When did that provide the independent engineering assurance that the LOTE was achievable?
There have been 5 assessments by the TAP during the progress of the programme.
Yes, I'm not asking you how many assessments are, I'm asking what the outcomes of the assessment
They've been positive about the technical work that we have done.
Do they say it's achievable?
The technical assessments say that we can do the upgrades to LOTE.
You can do what?
That we have the technical capability to do the upgrades to LOTE.
to do the load project, you say that they say they will. You have engineering assurance that the load project is achievable.
Yes.
All right. Well, perhaps on notice you could provide details of the 5 technical assessments. I know we haven't got a lot of time tonight, but if you could provide the detail of the technical assessments and the date upon which you formed the view based on those technical assessments that the load project was achievable. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Shoebridge. Senator Sharman.
Mr. Walsh, I understand, and I should have congratulated you. You're appointed the acting CEO on the 5th of December. What's the process for appointing a non-acting CEO? Is that underway? Are you involved in that? Is that the board running the process?
The process for that is with the board.
The board, okay. Have you been given an expectation of how long you're likely to be acting for before?
My contract is for 12 months.
12 months, okay. Okay. Could it be any... I mean, does that mean a new CEO, whether it's you or a substantive CEO, you or someone else will not be in place until December 2026?
That's a question for the board. I can't answer that.
Minister,
The new chair and I have spoken about, having that recruitment process completed as soon as possible. He is a new chair, and the former chair, I think, and the board decided to wait for the board renewal and then commence the recruitment process kind of in earnest. And, it's a difficult, specialised set of skills for this. So instead of having sort of rolling 3-month appointments, the decision was taken to have a longer acting appointment, but with the board keen to have that matter settled as soon as possible.
So is that recruitment process commenced? To your knowledge?
Look, the board is in... Certainly I've had a number of discussions. Yes, I would think so. Let me take that on notice and I'll come back to you. It is a matter that the board handles.
No, I can understand
separately to me.
Yeah, understand. If you wouldn't mind taking a note.
Yes, no, very happy to.
Thank you. And then just lastly, the relationship or MOU that's been signed with ANSTO recently, a couple of months ago. Just tell me how that partnership is intended to work and what sort of workforce capability you expect it to deliver.
So you'll be aware that we have been working with Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard to send significant numbers of people to Pearl Harbor for training with America. Those numbers is around about 200 people are over there at the moment, and 6 people
at Pearl Harbor.
At Pearl Harbor.
Learning sustainment, working with the Americans. 6 of those individuals transitioned back to Australia in December. Those are the first people who had completed their training in America. Those individuals are now experienced in working in radiological controlled areas. They need to go through some additional training inside Australia to meet Australian regulations, and we also need to keep their skills alive and give them more experiential work inside Australia. And of course, at the moment, we don't have nuclear submarines here on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. So the MOU with ANSTO is to be able to place those people into ANSTO to continue some of their training and also to give them the experience prior to the nuclear submarines arriving. I see, okay. And so that will be an ongoing sort of rolling placements as people come back from Pearl Harbor? That's correct. They spend time in ANSTO, keep their skills ready, get locally accredited and qualified.
Yeah, not all of them need to do that.
Yeah.
We'll use some of them in other activities, but the people who have done radiological control training, they need that type of experience.
Okay. And
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can I just have a little follow on from that? So you said there's about 200 at Pearl Harbor, did you say?
That's correct.
What's the spread of the different levels or skill sets that you're sending across there? Is it varied?
It's very varied. So there is everybody from supervisors who will supervise shot blasting and painting, welders. There are pipe fitters, electricians, there are test engineers, and the length of time they need to stay there depends on the skills that they're learning. So some of the senior test engineers, they'll spend a couple of years at Pearl Harbor, but they'll also spend other time in America increasing their experience in other shipyards.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Senator Sharma.
No, that's all right. Have you also got personnel at, is it Barrow and Furness, the UK shipyard, or has that commenced yet?
Yes, it has. I believe we have 14 people there in Barrow and Furness now.
14?
Yes.
Okay. And is that a sort of steady state, or is that going to increase the number of people?
We believe that's going to increase. So over time there'll be more people going to Barrow, but we also are looking at other placements in other areas in the UK, particularly in sustainment, and also other functions in the United States in the overall naval programme.
Okay. And then just more broadly on the workforce ramp up, so what are your sort of your targets for hiring over the next, so this calendar year, 2026? What?
Senator Schubert just asked that.
It's around 500, but one of the important parts...
Sometimes I tune out when Senator Schubert is asking questions, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just did cover this. 197 employed in January.
That's right. Right. But one of the key things is that we're particularly focused on early careers, so apprentices and graduates coming through into the programme. And a good reason for that is we need them to be with us for a long time. But also we're being very careful that we don't go out into industry and damage our own supply chain by pulling the really capable people out of the supply chain to work for us at the moment. So it's important to go for the early careers people as our priority.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. That was all I had.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming to join us. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you in a couple of months. I would now like to call the Australian Naval Infrastructure to come to the table. Welcome, Mr. Seaton, Chief Executive Officer of Australian Naval Infrastructure, and other officers that you have brought with you. Would you like to make an opening statement?
No, I won't.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Senator Sharma.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I wanted to speak a little bit about the Defence Delivery Agency. That reform was just announced when you were last at estimates in December. Can you just let me know what the extent and frequency of consultation you've had with Defence since about that announcement and your understanding of how it's likely
Yes,
to
Senator,
impact your work?
my answer will be very similar to Alex Walsh's answer a minute ago. That's right. So,
We'd like to think there was some connectivity.
yes, so we're in the same forums. So
You're in the same?
In the same forums.
Okay.
So there was an industry briefing that we participated in, and
That was just after the
just after
announcement was made, yeah?
estimates last time, and then in the last couple of weeks we've had a industry roundtable where input was sought from industry.
And who led and convened that industry roundtable?
The executive in charge of I'd need to take that on notice, Senator, or if you don't mind, I could...
No, you please just look it up. There's no urgency. We're on time tonight.
We are.
No, I think I'm going to waste the committee's time, Senator, so...
It's an official from Defence?
An official from Defence, together with a number of other officials who are tasked with the design of the DDA.
Okay. And what's your understanding to date of how the new DDA will impact the work of A&I and the working relationships and the counterparties and whatnot?
I don't see any immediate direct impact on the way that we interact with Defence. Defence fill a dual role for us, both as our shareholder and as our customer in a way. And so I don't see that changing at all. And of course we have a very strong relationship with the ASA as well, and that won't change.
And have any of your dealings since this announcement, like your counterparts within Defence, are they predominantly within NSSG or CSG at the moment?
NSSG.
Okay. Have they changed at all? Have they foreshadowed that they'll be changing?
No. No, the DepSec is unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
And the department, personnel change from time to time, but nothing significant.
Okay. So your expectation is that it's not going to materially alter the way you work with Defence? Is that a fair characterisation?
That's yet to play out, Senator. I understand that it's a positive change for Defence in the way that it interacts with industry. So, I imagine that through that there will be positive change for our relationship with Defence. But right now, I can't crystal ball what that might look like.
When you attended these consultations or industry briefings, what has been your input as A&I in terms of improvements you would like to see or steps you think that would be positive and improve that relationship?
My observation is that a lot of the discussion has been more directed at defence industry, so the primes actually delivering the capabilities more so than a government business enterprise such as A&I.
Okay.
We have a good relationship, we have clear lines of communication, we have clear delegations through a statement of expectations from ministers. So I think any impact for A&I will be very much at the margin. I think really the focus is the broader defence industry.
Okay. Thank you. Can I just ask a little bit about the Henderson Defence Precinct now?
Sure.
And where is that, forgive my very layperson understanding here, but where is that project, for want of a better term, up to? What stage are you in? The government's obviously made some announcements.
Senator,
what is A&I working on right now?
Senator, Henderson is being managed by the Department of Defence through NSSG in consultation with the ASA. A&I doesn't have any formal role in the Henderson development. We are providing some lessons learned and input from Osborne into some of the deliberations around Henderson. But I think any detailed questions on Henderson should be directed to Defence.
But you, correct me here if I'm wrong, but if or when the Henderson Defence Precinct is established, it would be expected that A&I would be providing naval or building naval infrastructure at the Henderson Defence Precinct, or is that not right?
No, I don't think it's as clear cut as that, Senator.
Decisions
I think
haven't been taken. Yeah. It's a matter for Defence who leads on this.
Okay. So I should direct any questions on this to Defence?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That was all I had for A&I.
Okay, so maybe you'd like to tell us how things are going down at Osborne.
Oh, yes, I should leave first.
Okay.
Well, it's just down the road from my house.
Well, clearly Osborne is our main focus at the moment, and in particular the nuclear-powered submarine construction yard. And I have to say things are going very well there. We're making great progress. If you'd like me to step through
I really would,
the sorts of areas.
Please.
Yeah. So for some time since the announcement of the optimal pathway, we've been progressing with design. We think about Osborne in three areas. So Area 1, steel fabrication, Area 2, outfitting, Area 3, the launch and test commissioning areas. Area 1 moved through a 30% concept design gate last year and is now heading towards completion of schematic design by the middle of this year. Area 2, similarly, passed through that 30% concept design gate and is progressing through schematic design for the remainder of this year. Area 3 is in concept design still. So a lot of progress has been made on the design. We've also progressed construction of some what we're calling production demonstration facilities. So these are early facilities to be stood up so that the shipbuilder can start certifying their processes and training some of their workforce. And those various projects, upgrading some existing buildings and building some new facilities, that's well progressed. We have lodged a licence application. Initially, we lodged it in April last year with ARPANZA, but then with when ANPASAR was stood up in November, we lodged a new application with ANPASAR, and we ran a round of community consultation in the Adelaide CBD, Port Adelaide, and in the Osborne area, and had and incorporated the feedback from that community consultation into our licence application with ANPASAR. I understand that process with ANPASAR is also progressing well. We have started construction of a skills and training academy, which is a $500 million development to train the workforce for the shipbuilder. We're driving piles for that at the moment. So we spent last year doing some site preparation works and preparing a piling pad. We're now piling. We've awarded contracts for the substructure and the steel superstructure for that building. So again, that's progressing well on track to open for the start of the school year in 2028. So in a lot of areas we're ticking off milestones on the project.
Great, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Anything else to say?
No,
Thank you very much for coming along. We do appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of months. Thank you very much. I would now ask CEA Technologies to come to the table.
It's a tight ship.
Maybe just suspend for a minute while we wait for I'd like to welcome Mr. Merv Davis, Mr. Paul Simon, Interim Chief Executive Officers for CEA Technologies. Thank you for coming. Nice to see you. Do you have an opening statement that you'd like to share with us?
I would like it,
yes,
please.
Please go ahead.
Good evening. Chair, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to provide that opening statement. I'm Merv Davis, the Non-Executive Board Director and Interim Chief Executive at CEA. As the committee is aware, the company is currently in the process of recruiting a new CEO, and interim arrangements therefore continue to remain in place. The Chair of the Board, Ms Jocelyn Morton, is currently performing the responsibilities of interim CEO, with fellow directors Paul Simon and I performing the role when she's not available. Ms Morton is currently in the United Kingdom on company business, and in her absence, Mr Simon and I are here to respond to your questions. With regards to the recruitment of a new CEO, the board has identified a preferred candidate, and that appointment has been put forward to shareholders for consideration. And then I would like to reiterate that CEA Technologies operates in a highly sensitive environment, delivering technology solutions that support critical defence and national security capabilities, and that naturally places limitations on the level of detail that can be shared in a public forum. However, we will endeavour to provide the committee with as much information as possible to assist with their inquiries.
Thank you very much. We'll go directly to Senator Sharma.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr Davis and your colleagues for coming along. I'm sorry you're yet again the last one of the evening.
Yes, we'll have to change that.
We should change the order next time. I think you could be first in the morning or something.
For one group to always be last.
Agreed. Thank you for the update, Mr Davis, on the CEO arrangements. I was curious to know where they're up to because I believe we discussed that last time we were here. So the board's preferred candidates goes to the shareholders, which is the government and correct. Mr Crozer, is that right? That's still the structure, isn't it? That is that's 72-28, is that?
That's correct.
Okay. And when does your appointment as acting CEO end, Mr Davis, or is it extended month by month? Or
it will terminate on the appointment of the new CEO.
Okay. And are all the board positions currently filled? I was just looking at your current board. So there's 8, and you'll just revert to being a non-executive director then?
I will.
Okay. And I wanted to ask a little bit about the Defence Delivery Agency. We discussed that last time you were here in December, and you might have heard ANI and ASC. So if you want to offer the same or similar answers, you're quite free to. But I wanted to understand your level of consultation and involvement with the design and scoping or concept, if you like, of the Defence Delivery Agency since it was announced. What briefings you've been involved in, what consultations you might have had.
Well, I think like many in industry, there was a briefing on the 4th of December post the initial announcement. We attended that, four directors attended that. Beyond that, we've had no engagement. I heard earlier reference to a round table. We were not aware of such a round table and clearly therefore didn't have anyone attend.
So your only engagement on this Defence Delivery Agency has been the briefing, which was for all sort of industry and stakeholders
Correct.
on the 4th of December?
Correct.
Okay. Has your... just familiarise me again with your main counterparts within the Department of Defence. What are the areas that you work with on a daily basis?
Principally with CASG.
With CASG, yeah.
Correct.
And has that working relationship changed, or your point of contact, or the methods of interaction?
It continues to work as well as it did.
Okay. And has your counterpart at CASG advised you that things might be changing or foreshadowed?
No communication of that type, no.
Okay. So as far as you're concerned, it's just business as usual. Nothing's changed. And you've been given no indication that anything will change?
No, we have not.
Are you aware of any briefings coming up, or consultations, or timelines?
I am not.
Okay. Minister, can I ask, when's this Defence Delivery Agency meant to be operational and up and running?
Well, I don't have that. I mean, that's not my portfolio area.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Defence will be able to answer those questions.
Okay, we'll direct them to Defence. I don't think I had any other questions. I'm sorry to keep you, but I did actually want to ask those questions in person.
No, that's
what estimates are for.
Mr Davies, Mr Simon, one of these days you'll turn up for a half-hour slot and you'll be here an hour and a half later just sweating bullets going, okay, enough.
Maybe
so
9 a.m.
Look forward to that.
I do indeed, Chair.
We do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for all the work and coming here.
And that actually concludes today's hearing. I'd like to thank all of the witnesses that we've had in today, and a particular thanks to the Minister to Hansard Broadcasting for all of their hard work, and to our Secretariat. And I now declare this meeting of the Senate Finance and Public Administration Legislation Committee adjourned.